Welcome to Deerhound Productions. I'm DaneCat33, and to celebrate the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I'll be taking a wide look at the Animatronics history throughout the development of FNaF, detailing all of their appearances and roles throughout the series. And don't worry, there are no spoilers for the film in here, just a detailed reflection on all the ups and downs in the history of these plastic killers. Speaking of toys, we're proud to officially promote the greatest toy/mobile game ever, myPOPGOES. This official Five Nights at Freddy's game is a new entry in the POPGOES series, which is set in an alternate universe alongside Five Nights at Candy's. It's a simple resource management game with a variety of bonus challenges, games, and of course, since this is Five Nights at Freddy's, lore. I myself am not too big on resource management games, but I really enjoyed the simple gameplay, challenges, and bonus game modes. The rest of the Deerhound Productions team did too. Don't just take my word for it. myPOPGOES currently has 4.9 stars. And the best part is that this whole fantastic game is available for the low price of $2.99, which is cheaper than it is on Steam. The game also has a Spanish translation. We'll discuss myPOPGOES later in this video, so be sure to check it out on Android and iOS before we spill the beans. But let's return to some more murderous toys, starting with their first appearance in the second game of the series, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. After Willie Mafton's original murders, Freddy's reopened with the new toy Animatronics. These advanced critters were designed with a criminal database, allowing them to detect any nearby predators. The toy gang consists of shiny, cute variants of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and new characters such as the Mangle and Balloon Boy. Mangle is technically a variant of Foxy. Originally, she was even named Funtime Foxy, but not the same one from Sister Location. I know, FNaF is confusing sometimes. Unlike the other toys, she's very different from her classic counterpart, swapping out the burnt red color palette for white and pink look, which we'd see more of later with Sister Location's Funtime Animatronics. Originally, Mangle was much more put together. However, kids can be cruel, clearly shown by how they tore this animatronic apart. Are kids actually that strong? I mean, this is a giant robot and they just tore it apart. That's the real horror of this game. Anyways, the staff tried to fix him, but eventually they gave up, leaving her as a take-apart, put back together attraction. There is a secret 6th toy animatronic named JJ. She's a female version of BB, but there's never actually any acknowledgement of her as a Freddy's character, so I don't think she was ever a real animatronic. Also, before we proceed, no, the marionette won't be included as a toy animatronic. While she's often grouped with the toys, she's not really the same class of animatronic. She was made before them, as evidenced by her presence during the 1985 murders, and the implication in Help Wanted 2 that she existed in 1983. Speaking of murders, it's important to note that these toy animatronics are possessed in the games. There are 5 new dead kids in the Save Them minigame, which can't be the original missing children, since that happened at the original Freddy's before the toy's existence. And we see that Withered Freddy is already possessed. Then in the main gameplay, the toys clearly have possessed eyes and behavior. These guys are undoubtedly haunted. These bots are the main antagonists in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, along with the Withered animatronics and the marionette. They become less active during nights 3 and 4, likely to balance them out with the Withered animatronics. But afterwards, they become much more aggressive. Then, during the custom night, you get to choose their difficulty. Overall, the toys are fantastic in this game. They're a solid group of animatronics, and notably the first new variants of the main Freddy's gang. While the toys had a great run in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, sadly, things quickly declined. In the third entry of the series, all of the Freddy's animatronics are now destroyed, with their parts scattered throughout the Fazbear's Fright horror attraction. However, they return on night 2 as ghostly hallucinations known as the Phantoms. But the only toy animatronics that received phantom forms were Balloon Boy and Mangle, leaving the only appearance of the toy trio as a box of scrap, which despite being featured in a teaser, has no significance whatsoever. That being said, Toy Chica does appear as a playable character in the minigame Chica's Party, which is required to unlock the good ending. It also has this creepy secret area that I guess I entirely forgot about, probably some repressed trauma there. Balloon Boy and Mangle also get their own respective minigames. BB's Air Adventure, where the demon child collects balloons, and Mangle's Quest, where the spider-fox amalgamation thingy has to collect her missing parts while avoiding a kid, who will end your game if he catches Mangle, likely as a reference to the children who tore him apart and left him, well, mangled. Anyways, speaking of the minigames, those focus on putting the souls trapped in the main animatronics to rest, with no acknowledgement of the spirits who possess the toys. This has always bothered me so much. The ghosts haunting the toys have been so ignored in the story to the point where some people don't even think they were possessed. The main missing children have all been given names and some sort of characterization, mostly with Susie. On the other hand, we know nothing about the kids haunting the toys. On a grand scale, they have no impact or significance on the story. As a longtime fan of these animatronics, it sucks how much they're ignored. While the toys do eventually return as a bigger part of the series, their characters sadly never recover. Things don't get much better with Five Nights at Freddy's 4. Not that there's much good about this game besides the nightmares and Fredbear stuff anyways. In the minigames, the toys are referenced with figurines of Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, who is notably missing her beak. If you were a fan of FNaF back when this game was initially released, then I'm sure this image has scarred you. Lingering Dream Theory trauma aside, the toys actually play a bigger role in the Halloween DLC, but once again, only BB and Mangle appear, with new Nightmarish variants replacing Plushtrap and Nightmare Foxy. As a kid, it always confused me why only Mangle and Balloon Boy got to return in the third and fourth installments. But now I'm pretty confident that it's just because there's something different. The toy trio at this point were just shinier variants of the gang that we all know and love. Giving them new Phantom and Nightmare appearances would just kinda be pointless when Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica already got new forms with each installment. I will say that the future games give the toys much more characterization to differentiate them from the original animatronics. But back to my main point, let's look at the two returning toy variants. Sure, Mangle is a new Foxy, but she's a very unique take on the character. Not only having a whole different color palette and style, but also a very unique mangled look. Then BB is an entirely new character, making him very unique as well. These two characters stand out from the other toys, who, while having shinier appearances, are just new variants of the old gang. Also, I think it goes without saying, that adding even more animatronics would definitely bloat the cast of the games. Mostly with Five Nights at Freddy's 3. Dealing with 6 Phantoms is already a pain. Imagine what it would be like with 9. So I understand why Toy Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica were excluded from future entries. But it still bums me out, and I wish the ghosts haunting them were acknowledged more. While Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was focused on horror, the next game is not. FNaF World is an RPG game that has a very cutesy style. And at long last, it marks the return of the whole toy cast, even JJ. Toy Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Mangle serve as some of your starting characters, while BB and JJ can be found in the world. In Update 2, the Halloween animatronics were added to the game, along with some oddballs. And funnily enough, Nightmare Mangle is excluded for whatever reason. Maybe to make room for iconic FNaF characters such as Mr. Chipper and the Coffee Pot. This is funny, since as we previously discussed, Mangle is one of the few toys that consistently returns. So it's quite bizarre that he isn't here. However, Toy Chica appears in this update during the Foxy Fighters level, with the addition being voiced by Amber Lee Connors.
Bingo! Got him! You won't get tired of my voice, will you?
She also portrays JJ, who is yet another character in this minigame. Amber Lee Connors is not only the first person to voice a toy animatronic, but the only person to voice 2 of them. FNaF World Update 2 is a very big deal for the franchise, since it's the first time we got voice acting from a character who isn't Phone Guy. And we'll see the toys given more voices later on. But first, we have to return to the era of Balloon Boy and Mangle with the Five Nights at Freddy's Novel Trilogy. I hope you're not getting tired of these two characters yet. These books take place outside of the main timeline in their own self-contained continuity. The toys don't appear in the first novel, which focuses more on the original game. However, there's some of the main threats in the latter 2 books. In the Twisted ones, Willie Mafton's Twisted Animatronics kidnap the main character, Charlie, and take her to an underground pizzeria where there's a whole horde of Balloon Boys. Afton's illusion discs briefly make them look like real children before they go back to being the evil balloon robot. Toward the climax of the novel, a swarm of them goes after the main characters, only for classic Freddy to swoop in and destroy them. He smashes one into the crowd of BBs and then picks one up, proceeding to crush its head with his hand. I also want to note that the Underground Freddy's has posters of friendly looking animatronics, one of which is a Freddy with rosy cheeks, and another is Bonnie with a guitar. These might be the toy animatronics, making this Underground Freddy's the novel equivalent of the new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, even if it's more similar to the Underground Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals. In the conclusion to the novel trilogy, The Fourth Closet, Mangle appears. However, instead of being made for a new Freddy's location, she was created by Willie Mafton for Circus Babies Pizza World, and is actually his version of Funtime Foxy, rather than a variant made by Fazbear. A really cool feature of the novel is that Mangle can shift between her friendly Funtime Foxy form and her Tangled Abomination. While overall these roles for BB and Mangle aren't super significant, and they're the same 2 toys that appear throughout most of the previous games, at least it's something. And it was a neat treat for fans to see these characters return. However, we once again end the reign of Mangle and Balloon Boy as Toy Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and even JJ also return with the release of Ultimate Custom Night. Similar to FNaF World, this is yet another everyone is here type of game, with over 50 characters from the series all thrown together into one giant customizable challenge. However, unlike FNaF World, it's a canon entry in the series and more focused on the classic gameplay style. This also serves as the beginning of Toy Freddy's gamer arc. His mechanic involves helping him win 5 nights with Mr. Hugs, a mini FNaF ripoff that he's for some reason playing. However, his fat plastic fingers prevent him from pressing any of the game's buttons, leaving it up to the player to protect him from Mr. Hugs. If he does get killed in the game, he'll blame it on you.
If I get jump scared, you get jump scared.
Oh yeah, Toy Freddy has a voice in this game, courtesy of Darren Roebuck. Mangle also speaks, voiced by Jenna Runduz.
Now I get to play take apart and put back together. You won't feel a thing.
Toy Bonnie doesn't get a voice, at least not yet. But on the other hand, Amber Lee Connors returns to portray Toy Chica, albeit with a more creepy edge than her FNaF World counterpart.
Where's my beak? Lodged in your forehead, of course.
The Phantom and Nightmare variants of both Balloon Boy and Mangle also appear in this game. I'm glad Scott didn't forget Nightmare Mangle this time. Speaking of forgetting, I somehow didn't mention the crazy Ultimate Custom Night intermissions. You can unlock these cutscenes after achieving a certain score. The first one, The Bear of Vengeance, is a weird anime-like show about Freddy trying to defeat Foxy, who hangs out with Mangle because Scott loves that character. Okay, that's all I wanted to mention about this intermission. Let's move on to Toy Chica, The High School Years. This series follows Toy Chica, once again played by Amber Lee Connors, as she fantasizes about and murders her high school crushes, which include Toy Bonnie, neither Mangle or Funtime Foxy. These intermissions seem to be about Willie Mafton selecting his victims, so despite how absurd they are, they do have lore significance. Following Ultimate Custom Night, things continue to get better for the toys with the release of Steelwool Studios' first game, Help Wanted. This virtual reality adventure features minigames recreating past games and characters. Most notable to our topic is the return of the Toymatronics, who star primarily in the FNaF 2 levels. Unlike the original Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the Toymatronics are the main threats here. While there's still the puppet and withered Foxy, but the rest of the older animatronics only appear in a special challenge night, leaving the toys as the overarching antagonists of these levels. While fans typically don't like their models in this game due to them lacking their shiny appearance and having some weird traits, such as Freddy's darker color palette and Bonnie's teeth being spaced out, that doesn't detract from how awesome it is to see the toys walking around the pizzeria, especially Mangle. She even gets an original level where you repair Freddy's vents as he crawls around with some phenomenal animations and great scares. In the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, she got another level named Build a Mangle, and she appears alongside Balloon Boy in Trick or Treat. Granted, unlike Toy Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica, Mangle and Balloon Boy have often been in more prevalent roles such as these, but I think it's still a noteworthy inclusion to show the toys start to regain their lost glory. In what some people may call the best FNaF game special delivery, the toys return once again with all new voice lines, mechanics, and skins. The game released with 8 characters, those being Endo01, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Circus Baby, Springtrap, and the only toy animatronic until winter, BB. In gameplay, Balloon Boy acts the same as the main 4 animatronics and would appear at low streaks or levels. About a month later, during the Christmas event, Toy Chica was added to the game along with a new mask mechanic reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The following January, Toy Bonnie was also added to the game, with a little bit of a surprise. He had a voice, which got some mixed reception.
Did you actually think you are
This chipmunk was voiced by Cadet Kyun, who was also the audio director / principal sound designer for this game. Random fact, but they worked as a senior sound designer for Minecraft Story Mode Season 2, where Steelwool Studios' current design director, Brian Fryermonth, also worked as a creative lead and lead designer, according to IMDb. Focusing on the other toys, all the original voice providers returned, with Darren Roebuck as Toy Freddy, Jenna Runduz as Mangle, and Amber Lee Connors once again portraying Toy Chica. Anyways, 2 weeks after Toy Bonnie's release, Toy Freddy was added to the game as part of the Valentine's Day event on February 6th. On March 5th, the final Toymatronic, Mangle, was added to the game. And after this, the toys received a bunch of skins. One event, called Arcade Mayhem, gave everyone but Mangle and Balloon Boy a unique video game themed skin. Don't worry, Mangle and BB get their fair share of skins later on in other events. While on the subject, let's name them all in order of release. First was VR Freddy, System Error Toy Bonnie, High Score Toy Chica, Magician Mangle, Katrina Toy Chica, Woodland Toy Freddy, Boulder Toy Bonnie, Swamp Balloon Boy, Frostbite Balloon Boy, Serpent Mangle, Sunken Toy Bonnie, and finally, Aeronaut Toy Freddy. Let's move on from a special delivery to a security breach. This game was the first free roam outing for the series, but sadly this change in gameplay doesn't change the toys' luck, although they are quite prevalent as cameo characters. Whether it be props such as posters and plushies scattered throughout the Mega Pizzaplex, or Mangle's remains appearing on an amalgamation of animatronics known as the Tangle. Mangle also cameos in the Monty Golf A arcade, along with Balloon Boy and his Nightmare variant. The evil robot child actually gets a whole arcade, Balloon World, where you have to float around and do your best to avoid popping your balloons. There's a hidden path in this game that leads to a secret ending with a glitchy eclipse, but ultimately it doesn't yield much. It is speculated that similar to the Princess Quest arcades, Balloon World was keeping Gregory under Glitchtrap's control before the events of the game, but that's just a theory. Something else worth noting is that the new Glamrock animatronic's sleek, colorful appearance definitely seems to be inspired by the toy animatronics. The shattered version of Glamrock Chica even references Toy Chica's missing beak. No surprise, as this game is full of references and callbacks to the original games. The sequel to Help Wanted also features the toys, although they only appear once. Similar to the original game, we get recreations of the first 3 Scott Cawthon entries. However, this time, they're in the form of shooting range levels at Phaser Blast. The toy animatronics appear in the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 level as both cutouts and some great looking balloon animals that you sadly have to pop. Maybe it just feels like I'm making a big deal out of any time the toy animatronics appear, but I really like their inclusion as antagonists here. Especially with the creative decision to have them appear as both cutouts and balloons in a shooting gallery. The toys also have props throughout the game, such as being depicted on the carousel, and their plushies can be seen in the Princess Quest arcade machine. But once again, the spirits haunting the toys are excluded from any lore. Even with this game requiring you to collect memories of absent victims for the Princess Quest ending. Scott must really not like those ghosts. At least the toys got to return as antagonists again, with a creative spin from Steelwool. While that's it for the main FNaF series, the toys play quite a prevalent role in the POPGOES games. Similar to the Novel Trilogy, these entries take place in their own universe known as the CPU, which stands for the Candies and POPGOES universe. This AU only takes the first 3 FNaF games into account, and the stories continued with the 3, soon to be 4, Five Nights at Candy's games, along with the 2 currently released POPGOES games, those being POPGOES Arcade and myPOPGOES. In the Candies games, the toys only appear in a newspaper in Five Nights at Candy's Remastered, which is actually the same newspaper from the ending of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. However, the toys play a much bigger role in the POPGOES storyline. These games take place long after the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, so the toys are already decommissioned. But before the events of these games, Toy Bonnie committed the Bite of 87, with his victim being Jeremy Fitzgerald, the night guard for majority of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again, this is an alternate universe and not canon to the main games, just remember that. After the incident, Jeremy moved to the UK, where he changed his name to Fritz Glade and had a daughter who he named Bonnie, likely as a way to make him love that name again. Bonnie was inspired by her father's former admiration of the Freddy's band, and created her own crew of animals, the POPGOES gang, who are the main characters throughout the currently released games, and who will be the main villains in the upcoming game, POPGOES Evergreen. But back to the toys. During myPOPGOES, we see a 3D printed toy Bonnie mask within a chest in Fritz's attic. Then during POPGOES Arcade, we learn that Bonnie broke into the POPGOES Pizzeria, which is her family's own British ripoff of Freddy's, featuring animatronics of the POPGOES gang. We don't know what she was up to, but she was in the server room, possibly trying to find information about Freddy's for her paranormal research. Bonnie disguised herself with a toy Bonnie mask, but Fritz discovered her, and upon seeing the face of his animatronic attacker, he had a panic attack, resulting in him grabbing an axe and violently hacking his daughter to death. Back to myPOPGOES, we see that he hit her body in the chest from that game and dumped it into a body of water. So while the toys haven't appeared in the POPGOES games just yet, unlike the main FNaF games, they leave quite a big impact. Oh shoot, I almost forgot to mention, Balloon Boy and Mangle do kind of appear in POPGOES Arcade. In the first campaign, The Dead Forest, BB is a corrupted boss. But during the fight, you knock some sense into him, turning him into an NPC who will give you abilities in exchange for completing his hit lists. In the second campaign, The Machinist, Freddy's spirit forms a horrific animatronic amalgamation known as, you guessed it, the Mangle. He's the strongest threat in the entire game, but defeating him rewards you with the Scythe, a more powerful version of the hook attack that lets you break through enemy shields. The toy animatronics will later appear in Evergreen, with some incredibly accurate models. Believe it or not, these aren't Scott Cawthon's original models. These were entirely recreated by Alexis, and they did a phenomenal job. But not only are we getting faithful recreations of the toys, but they're getting new false variants too. These disturbing new forms are much more monstrous and distorted than the toys we know and love. They'll appear during the game's post-night section, with the animatronics starting as their classic form, before they begin to distort, appearing in between the two looks, and then becoming entirely false. It looks like you have to scan them to stop them from progressing, and I assume this whole segment is a nightmare or a representation of Fritz's fears of the toys? I don't know, but I am very excited for this game. I'm glad that the POPGOES games appreciate the toy animatronics more than the mainline games do. They also have smaller appearances throughout the series, like in myPOPGOES, where you have to collect their heads to unlock a secret diary, and they have plenty of cameos in Evergreen. whether it be posters, collectible cards, or 3D printed figures. Again, super hyped for this game. Before we end this video, I do want to discuss some honorable mentions that I didn't think were significant enough to get their own sections. The Fazbear Frights book series features a new variant of Balloon Boy named Lucky Boy. As the name suggests, this toy gives whoever owns it luck. Although in reality, it seems to twist the user and lead them down a dark path. Lucky Boy appears as the main antagonist of Sergio's Lucky Day, and he has a cameo in the Into the Pit video game. Balloon Boy also has an arcade in this game, very similar to BB's Air Adventure from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. However, instead of collecting balloons, you're collecting party hats. Like Bloom World from Security Breach, there's a secret ending. This one being tied to Afton's 6th mystery victim, who we discussed more in our timeline video. Toy Chica also appeared in Chica's Secret Party, a game discussed in the Ultimate Guide 2.0. Allegedly, this game was up on Scott Games in 2016 for a couple of days before being taken down. But yeah, I don't think that's legit. It seems more likely that this is some sort of vague teaser for a future FNaF installment. One of our awesome team members, Blake, made a fantastic short covering this bizarre situation, so I'd recommend checking that out. All I'll say is that this is very clearly based on Chica's party from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, from the similar visuals to the very obviously inspired name. Speaking of the books, Mango has multiple arcades in the interactive novel, VIP. These include Mango's quest from Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and Cyber Fox vs. Mecha Mangle, which appeared in Security Breach. I'm not going to scour every FNaF story to find more Toymatronic cameos, but I will mention that in Jump for Tickets, there are two noteworthy arcade games, BB's Ball Drop and Dee Dee's Fishing Hole, the latter of which seems to be a reference to a location and character from FNaF World. Dee Dee is a recolor of Balloon Boy who first appeared in this game, before returning as the most frustrating character in Ultimate Custom Night, with the ability to randomly spawn any threat. This leads us to today. With the recent release of the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 movie, the Toymatronics are now back to being key characters in the series. They have had a very rough run, and while none of this can undo their almost entirely pointless role in the story, I am so glad that we're seeing them again in the series. By the time this video releases, the movie will already be out, but I'm recording this before then, so I hope the movie's good and that the toys are solid antagonists. I will say this as someone who has yet to watch the movie, I'm very skeptical about the toys having voices. Especially with the strange casting of MatPat and Megan Fox as Toy Bonnie and Chica. Kellen Goff is replacing Darren Roebuck as Toy Freddy, which I have mixed feelings on. Darren's Toy Freddy voice is very memorable, and I believe it's key to his character. But at the same time, Kellen has more than proven his range and talent. He voices Funtime Freddy, Molten Freddy, Fredbear, Freddy and Friends on Toy Freddy, Glamrock Freddy, The Sun, Moon, Eclipse, Movie Foxy, Jackamoon, Funko Fusion Freddy and Foxy, Arnold, the Mycelium Men, and additional voices in Secret of the Mimic. Whew! That is a lot of voices. Since the film will be out by the time this video is uploaded, be sure to let us know your thoughts on the movie and the Toymatronics voices. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and joining our monthly membership. It helps support us, and you'll receive a variety of cool perks, including shoutouts in our videos, custom emojis, badges next to your name, exclusive previews of upcoming projects, and more. Special thanks to our current member Shaun the Toy, and thanks to you for watching. Be sure to check out some of our other videos.
6, 7, 6, 1. Did you know? 4, 1. I can see you.